and Jalen Brunson isn't the answer. Jalen Brunson is a nice player. Hope the brother comes, hope he gets paid. But the Knicks are acting like he's KD.
It's an awful idea. And Jalen Brunson's a fine player.
If your best player is small, you're not winning.
The 2026 NBA Finals MVP is the captain, Jalen Brunson.
June 13th, 2026, San Antonio, fourth quarter, Knicks down 10. The whole series had been like this, New York walking into fire and somehow walking out the other side. And now, with 8 minutes left and a city of 8 million people watching from 1,700 miles away, Jalen Brunson did what Jalen Brunson does. He scored 10 straight points himself. He gave the Knicks the lead for good with just over a minute left. And when that final buzzer went off, the New York Knicks were NBA champions for the first time since 1973. Brunson ended the night with 45 points. Unanimous Finals MVP. One of 4 players in league history to score 45 in a closeout game, alongside Michael Jordan, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Bob Pettit. And somewhere far from San Antonio, watching all of it, was a man who had known it was coming for a very long time. Before we get into what Derrick Rose knew, we need to understand the exact moment the connection between these two players began. It wasn't in New York, it wasn't in a film room or a shoot-around or a playoff locker room. It started in a gym in Chicago when Jalen Brunson was a kid. When Tom Thibodeau took the Bulls head coaching job in 2010, one of the first calls he made was to Rick Brunson, a former journeyman NBA guard who had played for 8 franchises and retired with a reputation as someone who just knew the game. Rick became an assistant on Thibodeau's staff. He moved his family to Chicago. That included his son. Jalen Brunson was 13 or 14 years old, attending Adlai Stevenson High School in the suburbs, and he was now hanging around the Bulls facility, not as a prospect, just as a coach's kid. He'd watch practice, he'd be in the gym, he'd be around the players, and one of those players was Derrick Rose. Rose was one of the most exciting players the league had seen in a generation. The speed, the explosiveness, the first step that nobody could account for. The fearlessness of driving into contact twice his size and finding a way to finish. He wasn't supposed to be that player. He came out of Englewood, on the south side of Chicago, one of the toughest neighborhoods in the city, and he turned himself into the face of the franchise before he was old enough to rent a car. And that version of Derrick Rose, young, invincible, MVP level, is the Derrick Rose that Jalen Brunson got to watch, up close. Rose has talked about those days. He said he used to see Jalen in the gym all the time, that the kid was always there, always working, that their friendship grew organically, and that Rose started to understand pretty quickly that this wasn't just a coach's son killing time. This was a player. Derrick was his mentor coming up. Brunson's high school coach Pat Ambrose told the New York Post. Derrick saw that young Jalen was a very, very good player and really started to mentor Jalen basketball-wise. Nobody was writing articles about that. Nobody was projecting Brunson as a future star. He was a teenager from the suburbs watching the youngest MVP in history do his work, and something stuck. Here's the thing about Derrick Rose's relationship with Jalen Brunson. It wasn't just emotional, it was specific. When the Knicks kicked off the 2022-23 season, Brunson's first year in New York after signing a 4-year, $104 million deal that most people thought was way too rich for a second-round pick from Dallas, Rose went on record before the year even started. He said something that barely got picked up at the time. His IQ was through the roof, and a lot of people didn't know how he would adjust playing in the league, especially even when he was in college. He was a winner, he was winning in college, but critics said, "Oh, he's not athletic. He's not a freak of nature. He's not jumping through the roof, this and that. He's a hooper. He'll find a way to get the job done." He'll find a way to get the job done. Rose wasn't hedging. He wasn't giving a diplomatic answer to protect his teammate. He was making a declaration in September 2022, before Brunson had played a single game for the Knicks, before anyone outside the building had any idea what was coming. He had watched Brunson grow up. He knew what kind of player Brunson actually was when the scouting reports weren't looking. And he said it plainly, and almost nobody listened, because on paper, Brunson made no sense. And now, the Knicks were paying him $26 million a year to be their starting point guard and franchise centerpiece. Derrick Rose didn't care about any of that. He already had his answer. The 2025-26 season was where the conversation shifted, permanently. Brunson averaged 26 points and 6.8 assists. The Knicks, with a roster now built around him alongside Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart, looked like a legitimate contender from the opening month of the season, not a maybe if things break right contender, an actual one. He controlled pace. He exploited mismatches without being a mismatches player. He created them with reads and footwork and the mid-range pull-up that Rose had helped him understand years ago. He had grown into exactly the archetype Rose had been describing before anyone else could see it. By the time the playoffs started, the Knicks were rolling. They swept Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Brunson averaged 25.5 points and 7.8 assists in that series while shooting nearly 49% from the floor. He was named Eastern Conference Finals MVP. New York had made the finals for the first time in 27 years. And then came San Antonio. The Spurs were young and talented and dangerous. Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, the whole terrifying core that Pop had assembled before his stroke. They pushed the Knicks harder than anyone expected. Game 3, New York lost. Game 4, the Knicks came back from 29 points down, the largest deficit ever overcome in NBA Finals history, and won in one of the most stunning moments in the franchise's modern era. Then came Game 5. Brunson scored 15 of his 45 points in the final 8 minutes. He matched Michael Jordan for the most points scored on the road to clinch an NBA title. All 11 Finals MVP voters chose him unanimously, and when it was over, when the Knicks had ended their 53-year drought and the Knicks fans were going crazy in San Antonio, Brunson didn't go looking for his teammates first. He went and found his dad. Rick Brunson, the man who moved his family to Chicago so Jalen could be near the game, the assistant coach who'd been on every sideline through this whole journey, was the first person Jalen embraced.
I'm like, damn, I told Rick, like, man, you know, you might have a player on your hands, bro. Look at his height, look at like how he's built. Basketball isn't all about just being the most athletic, but skill. Just seeing everything about him, it says winner.
What Rose understood, what his own career had taught him in the most brutal possible way, was that basketball skill isn't always visible from the outside. That the players who survive and thrive in this league at the highest level aren't always the ones who test well or who look the part. Sometimes it's the ones who understand the game so deeply that their limitations become irrelevant. Rose lived that lesson himself. When his body finally broke down and he could no longer rely on the speed and the explosion that made him the youngest MVP in history, he reinvented himself. He became slower, more deliberate, more like a chess player than an athlete. He extended his career for a decade past the point where most people had written him off, because he understood the game at a level that translated regardless of what his physical tools could do. That's what he saw in Brunson. Not a second-round pick with athleticism questions, a hooper. Someone who had been studying the game since he was a kid in his father's gym, around real professionals, in real practice environments, learning things that don't show up on a scouting report. And the man who passed that lesson along, who saw it in Brunson when nobody else was looking and said it out loud before the evidence was there, never got the ring himself. Rose played 16 seasons and never won a championship. The closest he came was that 2011 team with the Bulls, the one where he won the MVP and led Chicago to 62 wins, and then the ACL tore in Game 1 of the playoffs against Philadelphia, and that version of Derrick Rose never fully came back. It's one of the saddest what-ifs in NBA history. A generation of fans grew up watching him dominate and then spent the next decade watching him fight to stay relevant after the surgeries took everything that made him special. He never got the moment, he never got the ring, but Jalen Brunson did.